What now for the UFC featherweight division? Let's dive into this cluster, you know what, of the UFC featherweight division. UFC 251, co-main event, Alexander Volkanovski goes into the fight, the reigning UFC featherweight champion, not defending yet. This was his first title defense attempt against the man that he took the belt from in Max Holloway. So this fight was going to be very intriguing because the first fight was intriguing. It took everybody by surprise that Alexander Volkanovski was able to do what he did to Max Holloway in the first fight, albeit a much closer fight, in my opinion, than what most people thought. I did give Volkanovski the edge in the first fight, but boy, did I not give Volkanovski the edge in the second fight. I thought Max Holloway won it rounds 1, 2, and 3, and Volkanovski won rounds 4 and 5. Now, the point of contention is this third round, this stingy, annoying third round. Who won that third round? And as you can see here on the dry erase board, I got what now for the UFC featherweight division. Top bullet point, Volkanovski versus Holloway 3. I think if you're the UFC featherweight champion and there are any questions as to whether or not you won against Max Holloway once, let alone beat Max Holloway twice, there are far more questions about Volkanovski beating Holloway the second time than there are the first time, but there's still questions. No matter what, questions are not good for a sitting champion. You don't want to have any doubters. You don't want to have any quote-unquote haters. You don't want to have guys that think that you're not even the true champ of a division while being a champion of a division. So if I'm Alexander Volkanovski, I'm looking at this whole situation and saying to myself, man, I won, but I didn't beat him. Pulling the Apollo Creed from Rocky 2, I won, but I didn't beat him. And I have to beat this man in order for people to believe that I'm the champ. And the benefit of the UFC featherweight division, based on the state of the division, is the simple fact that you have a very thin division, a division that doesn't really have top flight contenders. There are a lot of question marks in the division. There are a lot of matchups that have to happen in the division to sort out those questions. One of those matchups is the Korean Zombie right here, Korean Zombie versus Brian Ortega. The winner of that fight, I believe, will dictate who is next in line for the UFC featherweight title. They have to win that fight impressively, though, and both of these guys are very talented. I expect it to be a hard-fought fight between both Ortega and Korean Zombie. So I expect that to be a fight that will be tough to find questions because I think it's going to be a battle. I think it's going to be a war. I don't think we'll see either Korean Zombie or Brian Ortega win this fight in devastating fashion. I don't think that's what we're going to see for that fight. I think it's going to be a slobber knocker, a slugfest. Whoever comes out of that fight the winner will have to take some time off because they will be pretty damaged. That's just how I envision that fight going down. I could be wrong. Only time will tell. But Ortega and Korean Zombie, that's how I see that fight going down. But there are other fights, in particular, Calvin Kattar versus Dan Ige in the UFC featherweight division. Both guys are on a tear. Both guys have climbed up the division, climbed up the ranks, taken out durable opponents like Edson Barboza in the case of Ige, and in the case of Calvin Kattar, he just beat Jeremy Stephens, who has been around forever and has been a top contender in both the UFC lightweight division as well as the UFC featherweight division. So, does the winner of that fight, depending on how impressive they are, do they get the bump? Do they get the shot over Korean Zombie and Brian Ortega? You look at the rankings, and obviously Kattar and Ige are a little bit below both Korean Zombie and Ortega, but it's about who wins in the most impressive fashion. That's the guy that gets the title shot. But the good thing is that while we have so much confusion and wonder as to whether or not Volkanovski actually won this fight, there's a lot of wonder about that. That's actually a good thing in the sense that we don't have a clear-cut contender in this division. outside of Max Holloway, who has even threatened Max Holloway's contender candidacy, I guess you could say. We have to see these matchups with Cater and Ige and Zombie and Ortega pan out in order for us to know which contender is the rightful contender. And right now, Volkanovski and Max are on the same trajectory. They just fought each other. Medical suspensions, I'm sure, around the same amount of time. So timing-wise, it actually would make sense for both Volkanovski and Holloway to do part 3 immediately, because we have so many questions as to who won that second fight. We have more questions after the second fight than we did after the first fight. Rightfully so, you gave Max Holloway that opportunity to get his belt back. He was a great champion in that featherweight division. He defeated Jose Aldo for the title, unified the title, defended it against Jose Aldo, defended it against Brian Ortega, who many thought would be a tough out for him, and also beat future UFC Hall of Famer Frankie Edgar to defend that UFC featherweight title. So Max, a great champion, deserved the opportunity to get his belt back. He took that opportunity. Volkanovski agreed to the opportunity, agreed to giving Holloway the opportunity, and Max Holloway, not Alexander Volkanovski, made the adjustments from the first fight to the second fight and won that fight. You go to any poll right now, whether it's ESPN on Twitter, any poll right now, you would see that the majority of the people out there believe that Max Holloway won that fight. 82% as it stands right now believe that Max Holloway won that fight and that Alexander Volkanovski should have went home without a belt. And if you are a champ, rather than being here and wondering what's next for you, you know what's next for you. You got questions up the wazoo as to whether or not you beat Max Holloway. So rather than questioning who your next opponent is, let's answer those questions. Let's see Max Holloway versus Alexander Volkanovski part 3. Now, immediately. Whether it's in October, November, December, whenever it may be, this division, this UFC featherweight division, cannot carry on without those questions answered. I'm Ryan Thomas. It was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast on YouTube. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care.